Okay, that didn't work. Try the other button. Well, I don't think the TARDIS comes equipped with a clapper, but I'll give it a try. Oh, wow. I guess we learn something new every day. But there's definitely someone messing with our TARDIS. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and this is my friend R2. Sorry for all the darkness there in the beginning. We've been having a lot of strange problems with our TARDIS lately, but everything seems to be working okay now. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. In this episode, we're going to be building the Middle-earth Game of Thrones Iron Throne. And this build has been giving a lot of builders out there a really hard time with all of its engraved detail and uniquely shaped pieces. Groove Builders, will we suffer the fate of so many other builders before us? Or will we be able to power through it? Groovers, grab your tweezers. Middle-earth is coming. What? I thought that sounded pretty cool. Let's get down to the workbench and take a look at our package. Groove Builders, welcome to the workbench. We have our Middle-earth Iconx Iron Throne in some pretty cool Game of Thrones packaging. And I have to admit, I've been really excited for this series ever since they released the leaks earlier this year. Now to be actually holding one of the models in my hand, I can't wait to open it. Groovers, let's go ahead and look at the back. On the back, we have some instructions on how to build our build, and then on the right-hand side here, we have a QR code which we can scan to get a 360 look at our model while we're building. On the right-hand side, we also have a difficulty indicator showing about a medium rating, and then just below, we get a look at our actual model. Pretty neat. At the very bottom here, we also get a look at some other models in the series, and some of these look really complicated. Groovers, let's go ahead and open up our package. We have our instructions, and we have our metal. It's like two, and it's gonna be stuck in here. A half sheet. Cool. Let's go ahead and get our parts out. And just like that, we've cut out all of our pieces needed to build the Iron Throne. Let's get started with part number 1 right here. Now what it's telling us is that we need to actually bend this engraved side out just a little bit, but again, be careful not to develop any kind of hot spots. And what I've realized is that this little center area here has a lot of engraving that might be very easy to make hot spots with, so be careful when doing this. Just like that. I'm actually going to bend just a little bit to the left of it and to the right of it. Okay, I like that. Now we can attach part number 2 here. One thing I'm going to do before we attach part number 2 is I'm going to take all of our tabs and we're going to bend them down. Okay, now with all of our parts bent down, we're going to go ahead and attach it. This might be tricky because of what we just formed, but it's very important that we just line up a few tabs and we should be okay. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now we can move on to our next step here. Grabbing parts 3. Get up here. There we go. Parts 3. Making sure that we're bending with the engraved side out. Very important. Now we can attach these on the lower side here. Pick this up. There we go. It's important. These aren't exactly 90 at all. I was misled by these instructions. You don't want them to be completely in. Now, the best thing to do with these tabs is just pre-bend them in just a little bit, and this will make it a lot easier for you to be able to get them in their slots. Watch. So now that we pre-bent them, you can just bend a little bit. See how easy those went in? Lower one here, same thing. All because we pre-bent it. Really nice and easy. I really like to alternate my twists. I find the parts are less likely to come loose if you do it this way, or be slightly slanted. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, now we need to put part C here. Same kind of idea we just did here. Okay, looking pretty good. Now we can move on to our next step, which is part number 5, which involves curling down our little angles here. And I've actually already done this. My camera died on me, so I had to restart. It was pretty easy to do though. You're just taking the little edges and bending them into these little cylinders. Now I can actually show you this again over here with this piece. This is part number 6. You have some of the same things right here going all over. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and bend this down, and then we're gonna curl it around following the edge of the part. Just like that. Now, if you have something at home that can fit in the center of this to wrap the metal around, I definitely recommend using it. You don't want to accidentally do what I just did, which is crimp the metal. And there we go. Okay, we're just going to shape this like that. Now we're going to move on to our next piece here and do the same thing. Do our shaping. Now with both 5 and 6 formed, we can actually attach them together. Okay, I'm not really too happy with how this formed, but I'm going to work on it in the aftermath here to make sure it looks a little bit better. But before we can do anything, we have to attach it onto the throne. And I think this might be a little tricky. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to secure this tab down here, and I'm actually going to use this to help me because I don't want to ruin or get hot spots in the metal. This is an interesting step, and it's really confusing if you're not paying attention. I hope I'm actually doing this the right way. So this is the moment where I realized that attaching these two parts ahead of time was not necessarily a great idea. Okay, so now I'm going to have to figure out how to unattach these and make them look pretty. Now it's just a matter of getting these hooks in, and that seems to be the hardest part of this back. And there we go, our back all finished. Now we can move on to the next step, which is of course step number 3, but it involves something completely different. Put this down and grab our next few bunch of parts. This right here is part number 9 and part number 10. Now the biggest thing we gotta do first is of course bend all of these tabs. There's all of our tabs secured. Now we need part 11. Sometimes providing a little bit of back pressure really does make it easier. Okay, now with all of our swords connected, we can attach it to this back right here. Just like before, we're going to line up our tabs to our insertion holes. Sometimes you can look at the back there, and you can kind of figure out where some of them are. That detail does make it pretty hard to find out where those holes are. And now it's just a matter of bending out everything that we have here and really flushing out that detail. This looks pretty good, but now we need to attach it to part 13 down here. And I think again we're going to have some trickiness with all of this detail here. Now it's just a matter of bending all these little tabs back here. I think this looks pretty neat for the back here, but now we need to move on to the lower seat area, which is where a lot of this weird forming comes into place. Let's take it on, shall we? Almost like something's written right here, but I can't quite make it out. Interesting. Okay, our seat is pretty assembled. That went together a lot easier than the other side did. But now we need to continue on with the lower edge, which I think is going to be tricky because it involves a lot of awkward forming. So I guess first things first is to kind of get this the right form. I'm going to try to do that with my fingers. Now this right here is kind of warped in the middle, so I'm going to give a little bit of pressure there, a little bit of pressure here, and a little bit of pressure there. And that will give me my little shaping that we want. And once we put this inside, this will actually help a lot more with the forming. But before we go on and do that, we have to add the side detail, which are these pieces right here. Okay, that's both our side pieces on. That was way easier than I thought it would be, but I might be eating my words in a few moments as I attach this seat. I have to form everything exactly the way this is formed. You. That's nice and secure. Now we can move on to part 20 here. Looking pretty sweet if you ask me. All that front detail and side detail is now secure. Now with our 3 pieces left here, all we have to do is connect everything together. It's very important that we attach these in order, starting with step number 6 and step number 4. Okay, with a little bit of touch up, the Iron Throne. We did it, Groove Builders! We built the Metal Earth Game of Thrones Iron Throne, and this looks really awesome when complete, especially along the back there with all that really cool detail. If you're looking to build this at home, there are a few things you're going to want to know. Let's talk about those things in construction. For my first point, I want to talk about all of these insertion holes that are hidden amongst all this really nice laser etching detail. Sometimes it can be a real pain in the butt to try to find them, and I found the best way to get around this is to shine a light or maybe look through the piece through a light to kind of give you an idea of where that is. Sometimes if you're able to pre-bend a part the correct way, you'll find that the tab almost seems to find the hole itself. I was quite lucky multiple times throughout this build with that, but I can definitely understand how some builders out there will have some issues along the back here with finding those tabs. For my second point, I want to talk about these three pieces of metal right here along the back. At first, when I was installing them, I didn't realize how much I needed to bend them in order for them to go in their proper spot. Now, groove builders, I can't stress this enough. Take your time along this back here. If you're not careful, you will get hot spots, and that's where the metal is completely creased. Especially because of all this detail here, it's very easy to do. My recommendation is to use a marker or even a pen to really help you get that nice finishing shape like I have here. For my third and final point, don't pre-attach any of your parts together before attaching them onto the Iron Throne. The reason for that is because most of the detail on this model really requires you to use the model itself to get that shape. And if you pre-attach your parts together, it's going to be really hard to get those shapes that you need to get. I definitely had a hard time with the back here and ended up actually taking all of these little tabs here along the back off, reattaching it all together, and that cost me a lot of time. So don't do what I did, follow the instructions exactly, and you'll have a really nice Iron Throne. With that being said, groove builders, let's move on to build time. The Metal Earth Iron Throne took me just over 2 hours to build, with the majority of that time being spent creating the back here, getting all this forming correct, and of course, correcting my mistake that I did by attaching those pieces together before they went onto the Iron Throne. Groove builders, I think most people will take about 2 hours to build this, but keep in mind it's never a race. The last thing you want to do is rush the Iron Throne, because I don't think you'll be very happy with those results. And finally, groove builders, my thoughts. The Iconx Metal Earth Iron Throne is a very interesting build for any metal model builder or Game of Thrones fan to attempt. Most of the shaping here uses the throne itself to help you get all of those parts in, making it really straightforward to build. The hardest part that I had was actually trying to find those insertion holes, and that definitely made this whole back part here kind of frustrating to put together. If you're new to metal model building, I would really recommend taking a look at that 360 picture. That'll help tell you if you're putting your parts together on the right way. Nothing is worse than putting half your model together only to realize that you have a part on the wrong way and you have to take the whole thing apart again. Not only do you run the risk of accidentally bending a part the wrong way, you run the risk of accidentally breaking a piece as well. So my recommendation is really just to take your time with this. If you do, you'll have your very own Iron Throne. Alright groove builders, that brings us to the end of our episode. I had a really good time building the Metal Earth Iconx Iron Throne, and if you guys had a good time, don't forget to press that like button. For more videos like this, hit subscribe as well, as we got all kinds of really cool content coming out in the future. Until next time groove builders, keep building. Now to put this right in the center of my collection.